$36 trillion. That's what America owes. And just so that number doesn't fly past you, if you paid it back $1 million a day, you'd be done in about 98,000 years, give or take. Now, here's where it gets strange. Despite that, every country on Earth is lining up to hold American currency. Central banks are stockpiling it. Governments are rebuilding entire policies around it. And when one man in Washington makes one decision on a Wednesday afternoon, a farmer in Nigeria feels it by Thursday. A factory in Vietnam shuts down by Friday. And somewhere in Pakistan, a family's savings just quietly lost value. And nobody sent them a warning. This isn't a glitch. This is the system working exactly as designed. Welcome to the Capital Order, where we talk about the global economy the way it actually works. Not the textbook version, not the political version, the real one. I'm your host, and today we're answering one of the most important questions in modern finance. Why does the entire world run on US dollars? Because here's what bothers me about this. The dollar isn't backed by gold anymore. That ended in 1971, when President Nixon looked at the gold standard, said, "We're done," and just walked away. So today, the most powerful currency on Earth is backed by essentially nothing physical. Just reputation, just habit, and honestly, just the fact that everyone else is already using it, which sounds insane, until you realize that's exactly how it works. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how this system was built, who it quietly benefits, who it silently punishes every single day, and what actually happens to the world if the dollar ever loses its grip. That last part, nobody wants to talk about it, which is exactly why we will. Let's go. It's 1944. World War II is almost over. The Allies are winning, and the smartest economic minds from 44 countries pack their bags and travel to a luxury mountain resort in New Hampshire called Bretton Woods. Because apparently, when you want to rebuild the entire global financial system from scratch, you do it at a ski resort. Respect, honestly, here's the problem they were solving. Before the war, international trade was a disaster. Every country had its own currency. Exchange rates shifted constantly. Nobody trusted anybody's money. A German merchant selling steel to a Brazilian buyer didn't know if the payment he received today would be worth anything tomorrow. Global trade was basically running on hope and prayer. So 44 countries sat in that hotel and asked one question. What if we just pick one currency and everything else ties to that? Simple question, enormous consequences. The US stepped forward, and their argument was hard to argue with. They had 75% of the world's gold reserves. Their economy hadn't been bombed into rubble, and they had the largest military on the planet. When you have the gold, the economy, and the military, you tend to win the argument. Funny how that works. So the deal was made. Every currency on Earth would be pegged to the US dollar, and the dollar itself would be pegged to gold at $35 per ounce. Clean, simple, locked in. The dollar became the world's reserve currency, which basically means it became the common language of global money. If Japan wanted to trade with Brazil, they didn't swap yen for real directly. They both converted to dollars first. The dollar became the middleman of civilization, and nobody asked if that was a good idea for civilization. Fast forward to 1971. Nixon, in what economists still politely describe as a bold move, completely untied the dollar from gold. Just like that, gone. So now the dollar was backed by nothing physical. You'd think every country immediately dumped it, right? Wrong. Because 3 years later, in 1974, the US made a deal so quietly devastating that most people alive today have never heard of it. The deal was with Saudi Arabia. Here's how it went. Sell your oil to the world exclusively in US dollars. In return, we give you military protection, weapons, political cover, whatever you need. Saudi Arabia said yes. The rest of OPEC followed. And with that one handshake, the petrodollar system was born. Now think about what that actually means. Germany wants to buy oil from Saudi Arabia. Germany has euros. Saudi Arabia only accepts dollars. So Germany first has to buy US dollars, then use those dollars to buy the oil. Japan wants oil. Same thing. India wants oil. Same thing. China wants oil. Same thing. Every single country on Earth that needs energy, which is all of them, has to go through the dollar first. The dollar stopped being just useful. It became structurally unavoidable, like that one toll road with no alternative route. You don't have to like it, you just have to pay. Here's where it gets really interesting. You know how everyone uses WhatsApp? Not because it's perfect, there are better apps, everyone knows that, but because everyone else is already on it, switching means you lose your contacts, so you stay. That's the US dollar. Economists call it a network effect. The more countries use the dollar to trade, the more other countries have to use the dollar to trade with those countries. It feeds itself, it compounds, it becomes gravity. Today, around 88% of all international currency transactions involve the dollar. 88%. The second place currency is the euro, at roughly 32%. And here's the part that gets me. Even transactions that have absolutely nothing to do with America, a South Korean company buying Malaysian timber, are often still priced and settled in US dollars. Just because. That's the system. Nobody's thrilled about it. Nobody can change it. Welcome to Earth. And then there's the other pillar holding this entire thing up. US Treasury bonds. When countries earn dollars through exports, they don't just sit on a pile of cash. They lend it back to America by buying US government debt. China holds over $750 billion in US treasuries. Japan holds over $1 trillion. These countries are literally funding the country they publicly criticize. And they keep doing it because US treasuries are still considered the safest investment on the planet. So here's the loop that quietly runs the entire world. The world trades in dollars, saves in dollars, lends those savings back to America. America spends them, and the world keeps trading in dollars. It's circular, it's elegant, and for most of the planet, it's completely out of their control. Fair question, because you've probably seen the headlines. BRICS nations building a dollar alternative. China pushing the yuan internationally. Russia finding workarounds after sanctions. Countries openly talking about de-dollarization. So is the dollar finally losing its grip? Here's my honest answer. Yes, it's being challenged. Seriously, for the first time. But replacing the dollar isn't like switching streaming services. You can't just cancel and move on. For any replacement to actually work, you need three things. Universal agreement across 180 countries that can barely agree on lunch. Deep financial markets liquid enough to handle trillions in daily transactions. Right now, only the US has those at scale. And a government that other nations trust enough to park their savings in. That last one is where every alternative falls apart. The yuan, China controls its exchange rate directly, tightly. No country wants to hold savings in a currency whose value gets decided by one government's mood on any given morning. The euro, 20 countries, 20 different debt levels, 20 different political agendas. Too complicated. Gold? We tried it. It doesn't scale to a $100 trillion global economy. Crypto? I'm going to need a whole separate video for that one. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Most countries that publicly criticize the dollar are still privately holding it. Because when the global economy gets unstable, and it does regularly, everyone runs to the same place. US treasuries, US dollars, American financial infrastructure. Not because they love it, because nothing else is ready yet. So here's what I actually want you to take away from this. The dollar doesn't dominate because America is exceptional. It dominates because of a hotel meeting in 1944, an oil deal nobody voted on, and a network so deep that unwiring it would crash the very economies trying to escape it. It's infrastructure. And infrastructure, as anyone who's tried to fix anything knows, takes forever to replace. If this video made something click that never clicked before, that's exactly what the Capital Order is here for. Real economics. No jargon, no agenda. Just the actual story of how the world works. Drop a comment below. Do you think the dollar loses its dominance in your lifetime? Genuinely curious what you think. If you're new here, subscribe. New video every week. And if you made it this far, you just understood global finance better than most adults ever will. Seriously, that's not nothing. See you next week.